What is a relationship deal breaker for you that others might not agree with? An obsession with Hollywood and celebrities. I understand having a favorite actor or actress and whatnot, but I don't give a crap about their relationships, their health advice, or any part of their personal lives. My brother never shuts up what celebrities are up to and almost worships them. Newsflash, a lot are really not that great or worthy of that kind of attention, and many are poor role models. Story 2. I can't stand people who whine incessantly. I'm totally down for a good vent, but every conversation shouldn't be a venting session. If I hear someone whine about a problem for hours and days on end and then don't do anything to fix it, it just starts to get on my nerves terribly. People always say you need to be supportive of your partner, but I'm not going to be the entire system propping them up. Also, people with no ambition or passion in life. If I ask someone what their biggest life goal is and it's just scraping together enough money to buy beer and cigarettes, I'm out. Story 3. If we're planning out free time to see each other and she's only making small availability while I bend over backwards to make time, please, in any way along the line of, if you do X, we can do Y. Any implication that being together is not a mutually enjoyed experience. It is all well and good to do certain things that each other may or may not enjoy a great deal. I'll go to a symphony with her. She can come shooting with me. But some women can err on the side of the whole dating experience being a favor. Story 4. Spending money foolishly when you don't have any or much, or just in general even if you had the money. I was dating a girl that would constantly foolishly put things on her credit card when she was working at a coffee shop, making just above minimum wage. She spent way above her means, always making minimum payments on her card. Of course, the credit card company loved this, so they would send her notices that her limit can be increased. Stupidly enough, she always accepted. At one point, she had to move back home to pay off her debt. Her debt wasn't going down when she moved back. My ex would buy clothes, and instead of returning the clothes she changed her mind on, still had the receipt and tags on them, she wouldn't bother and give them away. She also apparently bought her used car with her credit card, over $10,000 instead of financing it. I can't be with someone that is that careless about money. Story 5. I could never date someone with military affiliation for multiple reasons. My dad is a retired army, so I grew up around military people and wouldn't want my husband to be that way. I wouldn't want my life to consist of mostly military personnel and families forever. A surprising number of military people I've met are giant schmucks who think everyone should worship the ground they walk on. I know it's not all, but I've seen way too many to get past it. I couldn't handle the long times apart. I'd be limited to what branch they could be a part of because my dad was in the army and craps on certain branches. Army men straight up make me think about my dad, and that's weird. Story 6. My soon-to-be ex-wife wanted into my LastPass account. I work in IT. I go to great lengths to make sure all my passwords are secure. Some of them are for household bill accounts. Stuff she needed too, so I shared them out if she asked, but she would never get my master password. I attempted to end it all in July and told her my master password so she'd have access to anything important she needed. The attempt failed, and she flipped out on me when I went to change it because she thought I was just giving it to her. During the 3 days that she had the correct password, she snooped and also got upset that I wasn't hiding anything in there. I broke up with her 2 days after I left the hospital. I haven't regretted it once. I'm doing much better now. Being hospitalized got me in contact with so many resources that I desperately needed. Plus, leaving her did wonders. I even got fast-tracked into a sleep study and should get my CPAP machine next week. If you're wondering, it was introduced to CBT or DBT or mindfulness and is very effective for me, but why MMV? Story 7. When someone, this can apply to both genders, is the type that has to be in constant contact with you. I have friends who disagree with me and label it as cute or caring, but really, to me, if you can't go a few hours without texting back and forth, that's just needy and can be suffocating. It's like I have a job and responsibilities. It shouldn't be that big a deal to disappear for a bit. Story 8. Ignorance. Willful or unintentional is a huge one. A lack of baseline intelligence is at the forefront of deal-breaking for me. I broke it off with a girl once after she told me that she didn't believe that dinosaurs ever existed. She sincerely said that she needed proof, so I offered to take her to a museum. She asked me, "So will we see real bones?" I said, "No, they will most likely be a plaster cast of the original fossils." She responded with, "See? How do you know they aren't just trying to trick you?" We didn't make it through the week. Story 9. Grown adults, specifically men, in my experience, who say they're bad at doing simple chores and make their partners do all the housework. You're not bad at cleaning toilets or wiping counters. You're just a lazy schmuck and still expect your mother or any woman for that matter to do everything for you. Nothing worse than babying the person you're in a relationship with. Screw that. Story 10. Disliking travel and generally trying interesting things. I know people who are content never traveling, going to the same 5 restaurants repeatedly and won't even try a new beer when they found the one IPA they like. I don't need someone who's super spontaneous and different. I like routine and comfort, and I'll watch the same romantic comedies on repeat until I pass away. However, I live in a big city with amazing food and so much going on. I want to date someone who wants to explore, find new places to eat and drink, go to festivals and events, and would be up for renting a car and going away for the weekend. Story 11. Threatening to end themselves after any kind of argument. Screw that noise. Looking at you, Rose, I'd like to point out that I noped the crap out of that relationship. The night she did it, I called the cops as I was downtown in New York City. She was brought to a hospital in Queens. I called a lawyer to cover my bum, my parents and friends to tell them where I was, and her parents to tell them what happened and to come and get their problem. Screw that. I'm getting married to a wonderful girl and my best friend who I connect to on every level in May of 2018. Good for everybody who got out as well. Story 12. Being fiscally irresponsible. It's not always debt. I can deal with something like having a low-paying job and having a budget to be able to pay all your obligatory bills, but I can't have a pretty high salary and living paycheck to paycheck. Poor financial sense and lack of future planning skills are stressors I do not want to deal with or have to be mindful of for a significant other. If we go through any real-life money-related problems or we have to struggle, we can get through it together and I will support you, but I need to know that you're not going to be one of the factors that's causing it. Story 13. If you're not willing to spend 100% of all your hard-earned money on me, we can't be together. Just kidding. I was once with a guy who expected that, though. Mind you, I was in college and barely had anything. He was jobless and literally had nothing but a dwindling savings they had to save for bills. Understandable. I guess my first mistake would be dating him in the first place, but he didn't start off without a job. It would suggest things to do together that would cost money, and it took maybe 1 or 2 times before realizing that he didn't have any intention of paying for anything. So I would suggest things that didn't cost much. Staying in and watching a movie, bringing food over to cook with each other, and he would call me a homebody. Dude, I'm doing this so I don't keep going broke before the next paycheck. This is an utter undoing, however. He cheated on me, and I only found out about this from his sister, who thought we had broken up because why else would he bring another girl to a family dinner? She called me, crying because she thought we'd have to stop being friends. Cheating is a deal breaker for me, and it's an even bigger deal breaker when you try to make out like I'm crazy for thinking cheating is a deal breaker. I just wanted to let everyone know how cheap he was, in addition to being a cheater. Story 14. I worked, she didn't. She was lazy and rarely did any cleaning or cooking. I like a tidy home, so I wouldn't complain and instead just do it myself once home. One thing that really bothered me though was her makeup pads being casually left on my nice cream-colored rug. That specific corner of said rug was not so cream anymore. Despite asking her repeatedly to do this one thing and dispose of her pads in the bin, came home one day to find them once again scattered on my rug. I knew asking her to clean up was futile, so I just started picking them up myself, and she lost it. She started arguing with me, stating I was purposefully making her feel bad about it. I'd barely said a word. I asked her to call her dad there and then because we were done. The following morning, I went to work and she was gone when I got back. Oh, she also liked to watch TV in bed. Of course, she didn't have anything to get up for, and I struggled to sleep with so much sound. One night, she refused to turn down the volume, so I grabbed my pillow and went to sleep on the sofa. Again, she lost it, and I was being a schmuck. A huge weight was lifted when I got out of that one. Story 15. Divorced people. That's not fair, and I'm not proud of my bias, but I can't date someone who has promised to love someone else and stick with them through good times and bad, and has built a whole life with that person, and then change their mind after only a few years. I wouldn't be able to accept that with me this time. They really mean it. Again, you asked for things other people might not agree with, and I know my bias isn't fair, but that's how I feel. Story 16. A large, close-knit family. I come from a massive, severely messed up family, so being stuck in the midst of someone else kicks in my PTSD hard and locks me into fight or flight until hours after I leave. Plus, cultural differences make integrating into a family almost impossible for me. In my experience, guys from happy families get angry and offended when I'm not immediately eager to become their mom's new daughter. 1, I'm shy. It takes me a while to get comfortable with new people. 2, stopping by to hang out with the in-laws, no matter how normal it is to you, will get you eviscerated in my family. That is just not done, ever. When it comes to holidays, I'd rather spend an hour or two with each family than come home to our own celebration, preferably one that involves us cooking together in a Lord of the Rings marathon. That generally means a guy with very few family ties. Story 17. Broke up with a girl for being racist. She was talking smack about Latinos. Little did she know I'm Latino, despite the fact that I look white. The shock and awkwardness when I told her, and then she attempted to fix it by praising Latinos and saying how she was talking about a small minority. She was mentally unstable anyway, so I broke up with her. Story 18. I had a guy straight up tell me he's never talked to a girl before and he never had any platonic female friends. He has a sister and a mother. He never talks to his sister, doesn't know anything about her except that she's attractive, and the way he talks about his mother was so off-putting. Like he has zero respect for her and just expects her to do everything for him. I pieced out when I realized he had some really weird ideas on what girls should be like. Girls should be neat and not tease guys. They should giggle and be flirty and always be clean and not say bad words and dress nice and smell nice, etc., etc. And if you weren't exactly like that, then you were like a guy and he's not into guys. Story 19. Any variation of the Marilyn Monroe. If you can't handle me at my worst, you sure as hell don't deserve me at my best meme. On its face, it's perfectly fine. Even has a bit of truth to it. In practice, however, it's been my experience that it's just an excuse for these women to act like a witch and expect people to put up with it because of their looks. Maybe just a small sample size issue, I understand, but it's been consistent enough to probably cause me to look elsewhere. Story 20. I have a lot of weird pacing when I first start dating someone. Before we become exclusive and settle into a relationship, if someone moves too fast or too slow for me, it puts me off hard. I know it's probably not reasonable, but it's a reaction I have trouble controlling. For example, with online dating, if someone wants to meet within 1 to 2 messages, that tends to put me off. But if after 2 weeks they don't seem interested in meeting, that also puts me off. I went on a couple dates with a guy a few years ago. We connected well initially, but he was kind of acting like we were a couple before the first date, like sending me good morning messages and crap before we'd even met, and trying to make out with me all night on our first date. He seemed to put out that I didn't stand up to kiss him when we first got to the restaurant, etc. I saw him again, but what finally did me in was when a friend was coming up from out of town and he wanted to hang out with the both of us. Like 2 dates. I already told you I wanted to move slower and you want to hang out with my friends? I just couldn't. After that, Story 21. People who lie to someone that they're dating in order to test them. There was someone I had a crush on for a long time, then I found out that she tests men on their first date. If her date tries to pay for both meals, she stops him and insists on paying for her own dinner. If he lets her pay, or if he never offers to pay in the first place, he fails the test. In order to pass, he has to insist on paying for her meal even after she says that she would rather pay for herself. This type of thing bothers me because it means she's not honest about what she wants. Let's ignore the issue of who should pay in the first place. If she says that she prefers to pay for herself, the correct, responsible thing to do is to let her. There are many women who do prefer to pay for their own meals and dates. By saying that she wants to pay for herself when she really doesn't want to, she's misleading her date about what she wants. This sets up a relationship where you can never be sure if she's telling you what she really wants or she's lying in hopes that you figure out what she wants you to do. That's not a situation that I would be happy with in long term. Story 22. When my wife and I got together in the beginning, we had our first spat, as everyone does. She got a little loud and said mean words to me. I immediately left the room and told her when she calmed down enough to maintain her composure, we could talk. Now mind you, we both swear like sailors, and I love a brilliant woman with a filthy mouth, but when we're having a heated conversation and she gets loud, that dog doesn't hunt. So after that day, we sat down and had a talk, and we agreed that we don't argue in front of others, and we don't shout or swear at one another. It changes so much. Everything said is generally pretty well thought out, and neither of us end up saying things we cannot take back. So many of our friends think we're perfect, never argue, and even after 10 years are blissfully in love and have intimacy almost daily. We're quick to correct them and explain our position on arguments. We argue or have disagreements as much as anyone, but they're for us to have, not the whole grocery store, friends over for dinner, and damn sure not Facebook. Story 23. I won't date someone who has a mental illness and refuses to seek help or try to better themselves. When someone's just a constant drain with all their negativity, I can't handle it. I hate being around people like that. It's not that I'm selfish and wouldn't be able to support a partner going through that. I did in the past and it was awful. It was barely a relationship. It was like I was just his unappreciated therapist. When I needed support, he couldn't provide it, because his issue always took priority. When I tried to be positive and uplifting, he shot me down and would sometimes lash out, tell me any and all efforts were pointless because this is just who he is and he's destined for a life of misery. Last time I posted this answer, I got told I didn't understand depression and it's not that simple. I do suffer from depression myself, and I get that it's hard to take the right steps and seek help, but you gotta do it. Some depressed people are content always being that way, and I can't deal with that. Story 24. Picky eaters. If you can't go to a restaurant without remarking the entire meal so what you get on your plate is completely different from what is on the menu, we can't date. It's childish and embarrassing. I feel ashamed and feel like I have to apologize to the server through a giant tip. Fast food is also impossible because picky eaters negate the fast in the fast food. It takes longer to order. Punk kids and McDonald's probably messed it up. Go through the drive-thru again or go inside. Sometimes I'm not dressed to go inside. Do we have to plan on dressing acceptable to get McDonald's? That's messed up. Pizza is also a pain in the butt. You'd think I could just get half what I want and half what she wants. Nope. A pepper might get on her side and trust me, she'll taste it even if it's taken off. Now she's lifting the cheese and toppings off every piece and obviously not enjoying her food. This is a very aggravating subject for me. Story 25. Obsessing over watching sports. It's boring to me and I don't care. I am a dude. I had a crush on this girl for a while I knew from my high school crew. I was always insanely attracted to her. I had a chance to ask her out 3 or 4 years after meeting her. She was usually dating someone and our paths didn't cross much. She came over to my house a few times to hang out. This was around test time for her college classes, so she didn't have much free time. Of course, there was a World Series basketball game going on. This was a big deal to her every time she came over. She was so engaged with watching it, it sucked for me trying to pretend to care. It was so boring. I think she assumed since I'm a guy I must know that the game is on. I would think she would come over, I'd cook, we would watch movies or study or bang or whatever. Instead, I tried to be cool and endure it. We definitely did not have much in common and more than just the sports thing. This lasted about 2 weeks, and I watched 3 full basketball games. She ended up meeting her now husband at a sports bar like a week later. Most of her common friends were mad at her for cheating on me, but she didn't. My friends thought my reason for not being interested in her anymore was me just being a witch about losing this chick I crushed over to this huge bodybuilder guy. Okay, my self-esteem took a hit, but we just didn't have anything in common except being physically attracted to each other. We talked about it a few days after she met that guy. We ended in good vibes. Story 26. Career ambition. If you're content with your position, pay, role, etc., and you don't have any desire to advance, I find it lazy and complacent. Justifying complacency with, I don't want to deal with the politics, is a cop-out I hear too often by far too many people. I feel this way about education too. Not necessarily academic ambition, but reading and learning new things is very important to me. Working 9 to 5, followed by watching TV all night is freaking lame. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 27. Sleeping with me. Like, I'm down for anything, and will probably knock out next to you for a bit after, but I don't want to sleep next to you every night. I don't want to cuddle when I'm trying to fall asleep. I don't want to roll over and find you next to me in the morning. If we live together, I want my own room with a bed and a door that I can shut on when I want to be alone. If they can't deal with that and not pout, I'm out. Story 28. I know it sounds harsh, but I've developed a bias against overweight people. It signifies a lack of self-control. Nothing wrong with a little chub. I don't need a fitness model, just someone who respects themselves enough to try and take care of their body. Getting into a relationship with someone who doesn't care about being healthy is basically just setting yourself up for problems in the near future. You'd think more people would cite this, but nowadays, everyone's getting fat, so no one cares. Also, serious people who can't joke or relax. Such a killjoy to try and do fun activities and feel on edge the whole time because said person can't seem to enjoy themselves. You'd think this would be rare, but it isn't. Story 29. I have so many deal breakers, it's actually quite sad, but this one is probably the only one most people in here would disagree with or not understand. Intimacy drive. I don't like having intimacy. I especially don't like knowing that my partner hasn't had intimacy in ages because I haven't been in the mood, assuming they're not cheating on me. I'm prepared to live my entire life as a bachelorette if I have to. It would be nice if I could find another woman who also wasn't too bothered with intimacy. Kisses, hugs, and cuddles are nice, though. Story 30. I could never date someone that argues with people they don't know on Facebook. They all get heated over some comments sometimes, but I see it so much. All your friends and family can see you calling some middle-aged woman from Ohio a witch because she doesn't agree with your political stance. It's immature. And frankly, if the only way you know how to disagree with someone is to broadcast misspelled ignorance over a keyboard, you're a coward. Story 31. Smoking. I got engaged to a girl after dating a while, and she really didn't smoke a whole lot. It was more a social thing, accompanied with alcohol and maybe some other things, but we would spend whole days together without her smoking a cigarette. We got engaged and moved into an apartment together. I worked, and she didn't, which didn't help my mood, but she would buy cigarettes all the time. I told her 3 times to quit. That last time I told her to leave. Story 32. For me, a real deal breaker is any mental issue. I just can't be with a person who isn't mentally stable. That's probably because I lost a few years of my life with a crazy witch. Unfortunately, it took me a few years until I figured she's a mess. She was manipulating me a lot, and I was basically trying to see her from the better side to ultimately find that she doesn't have a better side. She had an OCD and maybe even more issues, but she refused to get proper treatment. Another deal breaker is low intelligence. This usually sorts itself in the first date as I don't have much to talk about with stupid people. If there's an awkward silence after an hour or so, I usually end it there. Story 33. I've been called transphobic for saying that I wouldn't date a female to male trans. But they are literally male, they might say. Still doesn't turn me on. It wouldn't work. I've also been called a racist for preferring very pale skin and light brown hair. Well, people have preferences, especially when it comes to intimacy. I'm not going to put myself into a certain-to-fail situation just to signal virtue. Would you call a 20-year-old who doesn't want to date an 80-year-old a gerontophobe? I don't think so. Is it possible that I would meet somebody who is the total antithesis of my preferences and yet fall for him anyway? Of course it is. And I would not refuse just because of something like that, but in general I have more than enough experience to know who and what I like. And no amount of calling me names will change that. Story 34. Stupidity. It's the only thing I can't get over. I cannot, or will not, spend time explaining that zodiac signs are BS. The moon landing was real, immigrants aren't taking your jobs, etc. Intelligent people disagree on how to approach factual issues. Stupid people read nonsense in their tea leaves. Story 35. Call me petty, plenty have, but I can't stand people who smoke grass. I know it's partially societal priming, but every friend or girlfriend or family member who starts and only does it on occasion, without fail, starts using substances more often and losing motivation. It's so hard to talk about it too because I know my position is at such a disadvantage. People are very easily insulted about it, so I just try to steer clear altogether. Story 36. I absolutely will not have a monogamous relationship. I don't care who it is. If Venus herself wants to be my girlfriend, I will not go for it if the relationship is monogamous. I just can't be happy doing that. Right now, I don't even want a primary partner, although that may change someday. This is almost kind of a reverse deal breaker because my absolute insistence on not having rules about other partners placed on me or placing rules about other partners on others is a major deal breaker for most people who might otherwise want some sort of relationship with me. Then again, there is a small subset of people who find out what my expectations are and go, wow, I've been looking for something like this forever. They have the same problem as me, not wanting monogamy, not wanting rules, but having a hard time finding partners who want the same sort of relationship. Most people, I suppose, disagree with my deal breaker, as well they should. My lifestyle is not for everyone, and someone trying to make it work when it's not for them will end up miserable. Story 37. No intimacy before marriage. I think turning marriage into an, okay, you can do it now, devalues the whole thing to an extent, because it distracts people from what it's really about. Love and commitment and wanting to celebrate and reinforce that for life. Also, intimacy is a way that a couple needs to be compatible. It's an expression of love, and it's just not acceptable to me to refuse to do that with someone before committing to them forevermore. You need that information before you commit because it needs to factor into that decision. I wouldn't marry someone I'd never been able to hug and kiss and say I love them to either. It's probably unhealthy to hold back from that arbitrarily. Story 38. I stopped dating a guy who was my age because he had absolutely no idea who Lord Voldemort was. Like he'd never even heard of Harry Potter, the biggest franchise ever when we were growing up. That to me was like someone asking who Darth Vader is. You would have to be either legitimately living under a rock or purposefully avoiding mainstream media for your entire life. Plus, I need to know what Hogwarts house you're in before we get serious. Boy, bye. Story 39. Not knowing how to cook. I haven't broken up with anyone for this, but 3/4 of my exes only knew how to make a box of mac and cheese or heat up a frozen pizza. Meanwhile, I love to cook. Want to go to cooking school, etc., but I'm not about to become your housewife. I feel like so many 20-something-year-old men don't know basic things like cooking and doing laundry nowadays. Be an adult. Story 40. A couple months back, I was seeing this girl. She came over to my place and we made out in my bed. She said she wasn't down for intimacy outside of a relationship. That's fine, at least she was upfront. But the real deal breaker was the next time she came over, she gave me a sneak peek whistle. She said, and I quote, I don't think you deserve the whole whistle yet. I totally understand if you're not down to do it with anyone, not your boyfriend, but to use intimacy as a carrot and a stick to get someone to date you is just so discomforting. Story 41. I don't have a lot of money. It's totally my fault. I made plenty of bad decisions. I'm married and my wife doesn't make a lot of money either. Also made bad decisions. Many we made together. If at any point she made it clear to me that she wanted her engagement and her wedding rings had to be nice and expensive, then I would have never asked her to marry me. Even if she made it clear that the ring had to have a diamond and be made out of gold, I wouldn't have asked her. I hate jewelry and I hate everything it represents. Kind of ditto with makeup. If she spent a bunch of money on makeup and then a ton of time using it, then we would be onion rings. Also drinking. That's probably the most controversial thing I can say. I don't drink, I don't go out, I don't like parties. If your idea of relaxing is having a glass of wine, you'll be doing it without me. Story 42. Had an ex that would call me every single day after work and vent about how they were treating her, and every time I'd say, have you talked to her or done anything else about it? And the answer was always no. After a month of this, I told her I don't want to hear her complain about it anymore unless she actually took action to do something about it. She was not too pleased and acted passive-aggressive towards me until I broke it off. Story 43. Honestly, I've always had intimacy and compatibility as a deal breaker. It's not something everybody would agree with. I've actually had people try to argue with me and call me a schmuck, etc. Well, you're going to be very lonely for the rest of your life, you schmuck. Whatever, lady. At least I won't be miserable. Intimacy compatibility is crucial. If you have a different level of drive than your partner, if you even have a different level of preference from your partner, you'll be missing out on some of the greatest intimacy a human being can ever know. It's the whole point of love and relationships to begin with. If you're not on the same level as your partner, you might as well be dating a sibling. I tried it for 9 years, even married the woman for the sake of the kids we had, but she has a very low drive and I did not. It felt like being trapped in a prison where I didn't get to be who I truly was. She eventually ended it because she didn't feel truly connected to me. I had to agree, though I would have stayed forever for the kids. We were not connected in the level of intimacy that true love requires. It was basically like living with a really good friend. So that's my deal breaker. Sorry if it offends you, but I want to share somebody's very soul, not just have a really good pal in my bed. Story 44. Relationship or dating? I can't even think about going on a date with someone that has a name that reminds me of a creepy old man. I won't name the names, but there's some pretty generic names that instantly make my thing turn into the Sahara. If they like wrestling or an amateur wrestler. I started talking to someone casually a few years ago, and he began sending me photos of him in a wrestling ring. Couldn't do it. Noped out of there. If they've never worked in the service industry, even for a little bit, The hospitality world is my life, and it would suck when they get annoyed by attending openings or parties with me and then get mad at me. Maybe a little snotty, but if they tell me they only eat burgers and normal foods and can't be an adventurous diner. I love tots as much as the next person, but there's so many textures and flavors that you're missing out on. Obviously, if there's some sort of dietary restriction, that's one thing. They have no desire to explore the world we live in. I've even cut off friendships with people that didn't understand why I traveled to different cities or countries and would get angry with me. They weren't even all USA. They just were comfortable. I'm not comfortable with people that are okay living complacently or very routine lives. Story 45. They don't use laundry detergent. They believe in the ancient alien theory. They make fun of my OCD. The way they eat disgusts me. Kinda not an unpopular opinion. Love and breathe, Rick and Morty. Lack of intimacy drive or creativity in the bedroom. Taking my freaking food. Screw off, Eli. Bothering me while I do my makeup. Using me as an armrest. I'm 5'2". Their living quarters aren't up to my standards of hygiene. This applies to the bathroom, too. Don't shower frequently enough, to my standards. Nosy. Just too gosh darn nosy. Quit asking me freaking questions. Talk incessantly in huge tangents, and it's a boring, unimportant story, and I couldn't care less. Sometimes silence is wonderful. Singing along to Lana Del Rey that's playing along in the background during intimacy. Stop. Not doing something around the house that I asked and with no real reason. Don't take their shoes off, or at least politely ask about it once entering my residence. Think it's funny to mercilessly tease me until I'm angry and crying because it wasn't funny, but I'm being a crybaby, and I'm butthurt because horrifically cruel jokes or comments are perfectly fine until I make one that isn't even remotely close to being as cruel. Story 46. Not having a career or aspirations for more in life than their minimum wage retail job. Basically anyone in retail. I've gone that path so many times, and it's always been the same. They sit around blowing money they don't have, complaining about being poor or about how everyone at their job sucks and customers suck. Yeah, when you bring up doing something more, they just have no aspirations to do that. I'm not getting any younger, and listening to their silly gossip and constantly getting messed up on a Tuesday is not how I want to spend my time. I've gone to school, established myself in a career, and I expect someone who at least isn't working at the mall or the hairdressers anymore. Story 47. The woman who wants to be a stay-at-home wife. I respect everyone's choices. I grew up on a farm and my grandparents are amazing. Grandma being a farm wife, and I think there's nothing wrong with that life. I just know it doesn't work for me. It doesn't need to make crazy money. I don't care about that, but I like to be on the go and doing things, and I'm passionate about my career, and I just don't match well with someone who doesn't have a passion they're pursuing. If her passion is to be a stay-at-home mom, I fear the family dynamic will boil down to my thing being my career and her thing being our children, and that could marginalize me as a parent. Maybe it's an irrational fear, but I just can't do that dynamic. Story 48. If we can't have fun, just me and you in a room, no people, no activity, just being together in a room, entertaining each other, making each other laugh, just being comfortable sitting together or talking, then it ain't gonna last very long. Before I met my wife, I experienced this in a few different ways, and it was a very important lesson. One girl, when we weren't having intimacy, had nothing to say to each other. Like zero. Another was painfully annoying. Another was a 10, but man, was it stressful being around her. Always drama, mood swings, or plans about the next dinner with so-and-so. Barf. It was a relief when we broke up. And now, with my wife, we can just sit on the couch, say a few words to each, and be perfectly content. Story 49. Being with a late person. Someone who is always late to things. I'm an early person. I have a mild compulsion to be early whenever going somewhere. 5 to 10 minutes. Nothing too crazy. But if I'm late, even for something minor, it makes me experience pronounced anxiety. My ex is a late person. Can't wake up on time. Never gets anywhere on time. Always 5 to 30 minutes late for everything. Sometimes even more than that. And of course, she was utterly incapable of understanding that I cannot stand being late to things. I honestly think there were a few times she made us late to things on purpose just to see me squirm. This is not something that I will go through again. Story 50. Well, what I absolutely can't stand is when my partner gets mad because I didn't do something she never told me to do. For example, just recently I got blamed for not having cleaned the windows. I mean, yes, they actually are pretty dirty, but we rarely ever clean them at all. But for some reason, she thought they should get cleaned and got mad at me because I did not clean them. The point is, she never told me. Say a word and I'll gladly do it, but if not, then I won't clean them. Just same with cooking. I'm absolutely against the stereotypical woman is the one to cook, but my girl loves cooking, so she always does it. The problem is that sometimes there are days where she had a bad day and does not want to cook, and she gets mad because I didn't cook. My work ends 2 hours prior to hers. Just send me a freaking text and you will get a freaking 5-course candlelight dinner, which I still love her though. Story 51. Man hands. Horse people. Low talkers. Same outfit wearers back to back. A genetic stain in their front teeth. I'm not like other girls. All my exes are crazy. Poor responses to social situations. Anger issues. Feels entitled because they have money. High percent of disposable income and clothing. Has a pet they never clean up after, like cats. Grown person with dolls or other kid crap in their bed. Poor decision-making processes. Poor research ability for making better decisions, i.e. won't research what is a good car or has X problem with transmission. Inability to emotionally be open and discuss rational problems within the relationship. Always is never satisfied. They go to church just a bit too much, or church at all. Story 52. I will give an answer that I really think lots of people wouldn't care about because, honestly, this thread is absolutely full of things most others would agree on. My first girlfriend did not have a favorite animal. She just did not care particularly for any animal at all. Now, I remained in that relationship for stupid reasons, and it wasn't the biggest deal breaker, but I really had and still have a problem with someone not having a favorite animal. Like, how? I need my partner to like my cat, man. The second relationship was allergic. Second deal breaker and second girlfriend, but maybe more people agree with this one. Allergies. Like, allergic to everything. Tomatoes, cats, glucose. Didn't want our freaking food to touch each other, so she wouldn't eat sandwiches or hamburgers. I didn't believe half the crap she was allergic to. Also, one of those people who had a certain food once in her life that she didn't like when she was a child and wasn't ever going to try again, even 15 years later. Story 53. Socks in bed. I don't give a crap if you're cold. Put on a blanket. Stick your feet under the dog. Whatever. Your socks have touched feet and have not yet been washed, and they're freaking gross. Ideally, don't wear socks unless you're wearing shoes. Putting shoes on. Taking shoes off. Whatever. Don't walk around the house wearing just socks. Let your feet breathe, and if you have to go outside, then put on slippers or flip-flops. My roommate gets home from work, leaves his pants and socks on, and walks around the house like that. I don't understand it at all. God didn't invent gym shorts so you can wander around the house in jeans. Story 54. My first girlfriend. She was from a different religion. We had the exact opposite food habits. I was a vegetarian. Maybe 6 or 7 months into our relationship, I tried to make her comfortable by not having to order entirely different things when we went out to eat because it led to a couple of big fights like, what is the big deal? Everyone is eating it. What's the harm in trying? Started eating non-veg. I wasn't the biggest fan, but I tried to eat it every now and then. Fast forward to my birthday 2 years later. We went to a restaurant. I say I wanted to see how alcohol tastes. Tastes, not let's get hammered today. She goes, what the hell? You know, it's against my religion. Don't you ever think about ordering alcohol on this table? Fair enough. A few months later, I headed at some party, and bam, she has a problem with that too. The last 2 birthdays were spent eating what I liked and getting buzzed. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.